Hello friends, the Deathless Lord Cerberus here. You know what time it is, from finding weird occurrences on Omegle, to answering the door to a stranger. This is 4 true horror stories that will keep you awake. Enjoy! Number 1. This might have all been in my head, but I still wonder what was going on. I was spending the night at a friend's house when we decided to get on Omegle. After getting bored with the numerous naked guys and people in Halloween masks, my friend fell asleep. I continued to talk to people though. I was connected with a girl who looked about 7 or 8 years old, maybe younger. Either way too young to be on this site. She didn't have a mic on, so we just chatted over the text. I noticed she was constantly looking up, almost above the camera or to the side. The way she typed seemed very advanced for her age. The conversation escalated from what our names were to her offering me sexual things. I was extremely alarmed because I didn't know how old she was, and if someone was there with her making her do this. I obviously declined the odd offers and began to ask her more questions. Was she alone? How old was she? Was someone making her do this? She kept looking up and beside her and only answered my questions by saying I'm pretty or some other compliment. Finally, I said, I'm being very serious. Please tell me if someone is with you and making you do this. She looked around again and replied by saying, I have to leave now. Bye. The little girl waved and disconnected. I still wonder what happened to her, or if she was even real. I guess I'll never know. Number 2. My 3 best friends, Cam, Alex and Jake, and I were bored on a Saturday, so we decided to go to the park a few blocks from Alex's home and play some basketball. We were there maybe half an hour when Cam pointed out a man who was staring into the palmetto shrubs behind us, not moving. Alex told us to just ignore him, so we kept playing, didn't think much of him. A little later, the sun is starting to set. We're done playing basketball and we're just hanging when Alex points out that the guy we'd spotted earlier is near the playground and was talking to a woman who looked scared out of her mind. We couldn't hear anything he said, but she looked panicked. The woman motioned for her little kids to get down from the slides, and when they do, the man started screaming at the top of his lungs and trying to grab them. He grabbed the girl's hair and pulled her away from her mum. By this point, all of us stood up and were getting ready to go over there. I'm pretty weak, but Cam and Alex are big dudes, and Jake was on our high school football team. The guy let go of the girl's hair, and the mum started to run towards the parking lot. Her car had just pulled up. I learned later that it was her brothers who'd arrived to pick them up, and she was running towards the car with her kids in her arms. Jake, Alex and Cam looked at me, and we must have decided in that moment to help. Even though none of us said a word to each other, it was like a movie. The mum had just gotten into the vehicle and was trying to get the car door open to get her kids inside, but the guy kept slamming it shut. Cam and Alex got in between the man and the mum so she could get the kids in the car. This guy starts howling like a wild animal. He tried to get around Cam, and when he realises he couldn't just reach through them, he goes to the other side where Jake and I were. He can't get past us either, but he was swearing and spitting and trying to push us aside. Right when the mum got in the passenger seat, he ran to the other side of the car and reached through the open window to grab the little boy. Alex punched him hard in the ribs, and he didn't even flinch. He kept trying to get at the kids, but thankfully the car pulled away. We start to walk away, but the guy is screaming at us that we're selling drugs and we're all on drugs. Cam tried to tell him that we weren't, and that we're just kids, but he runs right at Alex and shoves him to the ground. Jake was on top of him so fast, it was all a blur. Basically, Jake and Cam pulled him off of Alex and pushed him away, but he charged at us again. Alex and Jake got a few good hits in. I kicked him in the stomach, and basically, we beat the ever-loving shit out of this guy. I know the police caught the guy, and I believe he's still in jail, or a mental institution. Number 3. 3 years ago, when I was 19, I had just gotten hired at my local mall. Even though I've always hated the mall, and have had lots of weird experiences there, I was desperate after quitting my previous job, and figured, with co-workers around, I'd be safe. It was about 6 PM, on a winter night, and I was asked to come into the store to fill out paperwork before I started working. I was seated on a bench near the back of the store, next to a boy who had also just been hired. We made small talk about the job, and how the piles of paperwork were easily the largest and most ridiculous we'd ever seen. I thought he seemed cool. We quickly got to work, and started filling out the forms, mostly in silence. At first, I was so absorbed in the papers that I didn't realise I was being watched. I looked up to see a tall man, about 6'5", maybe 45 years old, standing about 5 feet away, eyes locked on me. I stared right back at the man, and after a few seconds asked if I could help him. He asked some very vague question about the store. I gestured to the huge pile of papers in my lap, and told him that I hadn't started working yet, and couldn't help him. He just continued staring. I'm a small girl at 5'1". I've been creeped on plenty of times, and learned a long time ago not to be too polite about it, but I had just gotten hired, and didn't want to be too rude about it either. What? I asked impatiently. Do you have a boyfriend? He stuttered. Yes, I lied, looking back down and continuing writing. How old are you? He persisted. Sorry, I'm busy, I said, not looking up. He stood there. He asked when I started working, and if I lived close by. He asked if my boyfriend was good to me. I ignored him. Finally, he walked away. The boy sitting next to me ignored this whole encounter. I decided he wasn't as cool as I thought. A few minutes later, I noticed the man wandering aimlessly around the store, occasionally looking back at me. I wondered if my new co-workers would think I was dramatic if I asked to be walked to my car. The next time I looked around, he was gone. Relieved, I finished what felt like the millionth written form and pieced the fuck out of the store. I scanned around, and as I made my way towards the mall's exit, I saw no sign of the man anywhere. I couldn't see outside through the glass doors, but I could see it was dark. I walked outside, and as soon as the door closes behind me, I am literally lifted off my feet. The man from the store is picking me up, kind of rocking back and forth in what was the most terrifying hug sort of thing I had ever experienced in my life. He put me down, thank God, to tell me that I'm everything he was looking for in a girl, and how nicely he'll treat me. He said he could tell as soon as he saw me that I was the one. Of course, I didn't see one other person in the parking lot. At first I was stunned, then he reached for my hand, when fight or flight finally kicked in. Before I knew it, I was booking it to my car, keys already in hand, not looking back. I looked up for a split second as I was unlocking my door and sliding into my car, and I saw nothing. I didn't see him anywhere. What the fuck? My first thought was, he's in my car, and I looked in the back seat, even though I saw when I entered my car that it was empty. I didn't know if he was hiding behind a car, hiding behind my car, getting in his car, or if he never followed me at all. But I was 100% mentally prepared to run him over should he come running from somewhere. I didn't know if he took a lucky guess as to which one of the mall's exit I would come out of, or if he saw which way I had entered. I got out of the parking lot real quick. I was frantically looking in my rearview mirror as I sped home, half expecting to see the dude pop up from my back seat. I didn't see anyone following me, and started to calm down when I see a huge black truck ripping down the road behind me at top speed. It was a pretty good distance behind me, but I noped out the situation with a second thought, and pulled into a hotel parking lot that I was luckily next to at the time. Turning my headlights off and parking amidst the other cars in the lot, I lowered myself and watched the truck continue down the road. I had no idea whether the car was him, or just a person driving fast, but I didn't move for probably 5 minutes, on high alert, ready to poop my pants at the drop of a pin. Never seeing the truck return, I decided to continue the drive home, taking a detour from the road I was on. No one followed me the rest of the way. I quit my job before I even started. I cried on the inside for a couple of hours, and that was that. Number 4. This was in 2010. I just had my first baby and was on maternity leave. I am a young mum. I was 21 at the time. We had just bought our first house, and my boyfriend was working ridiculous hours, leaving around 6:30 am and was rarely home before 10:30 pm. On this particular night, he hadn't come home and it was nearing 11 pm. Sitting with my baby on my lap and my dog Belle, I heard a knock at the door. This is where I made a big mistake. Holding my newborn, I walked straight up to the door and opened it. I was expecting my boyfriend to be there and didn't bother asking who it was. Standing there was an older man, maybe 50s, balding and average build. He seemed caught off guard and wouldn't stop staring at my baby. He introduced himself as my next door neighbour. This immediately made me uncomfortable. We had just moved in and I met the neighbours on both sides. On either side were young couples buying their first house. There was no older man in either house. I took a step back and the man started to shift and randomly started asking me if my TV reception was bad. I am too nice. I felt alarm bells, but I was too concerned about being polite. At this point, my dog Belle ran up to the door. She ignored the man at the door and looked a bit further down the road and she started to growl. She never did this. I looked in the direction she was looking and saw the figure of a man hiding behind a tree. I couldn't make anything out, it was too dark outside, but I saw the tip of a cigarette light up when the tree man took a drag. I looked back up at the man at my door and put two and two together. I said I didn't know anything about the TV reception, but that my boyfriend would and he was just upstairs. I shut the door and locked it. I ran around the house, checking all the locks. I think I was saved because this creep had some form of morals. I didn't want to attack a woman holding a newborn. They also could have been deterred by my dog. If it wasn't for Belle, I wouldn't have seen the man hiding in the darkness, and I may have continued the conversation, allowing the creep to get over his initial shock. I never called the cops because I'm a fool. So, neighbour, and your random friend hiding behind the tree in the darkness, let's not meet again.